Good at what I do. I'm OMW. OMW. On my way to you. Good at what I do. I'm OMW. On my way, on my way. They wanna judge me, I'll testify. Catch me on Insta, I'm verified. They want me quiet, I amplify. I'm on my way to the best thing that you've ever seen. You know that you bow to the queen. You lose all your senses and reason. I'll give you something to believe in. OMW, on my way to you. Good at what I do. I'm OMW. OMW, on my way to you. Good at what I do. I'm OMW. On my way, on my way. On my way, on my way. Yeah, OMW. Nothing left to prove. So enjoy the view, taking a picture like Malibu. I'ma have you on tiptoes, watching my diamond afterglow. I know you wanna take me home. I'm on my way, on my way. OMW, on my way to you. Good at what I do. I'm OMW. OMW, on my way to you. Good at what I do. I'm OMW.
Well, I guess the end of a song is as good a place as any to get this party started. Wait for it. Wait for it. There I am. Hello. Hello and welcome. My name is Rebecca, if you're new here. So what we do is we all watch a movie at the same time, and me and my guest talk about that movie, and you get to talk with us. Drop stuff in the comments. I can put your comments up on the screen, like DR says, back in a few with some snacks. I've also got snacks tonight. I'm excited. We're going to incorporate that into the show. Little snack time. We have a fun little game planned for it. I think it'll be a good time. So how this works. Oh, I got to find the movie for everybody. So you will need to either rent or purchase this movie. The Good, the Bad, the Weird is the movie that we're doing tonight, which you probably already know because you're here. You followed a link most likely to get here. So I'm going to drop that link into the comments. There we go. That is where you can rent it on iTunes. If you just Google The Good, the Bad, the Weird, though, you can get all of the different options. You can also watch it for free on Amazon if you sign up for the IFC free trial. You can watch it tonight and then cancel that free trial within the next week, and they won't charge you anything. So that's nice. Let me see. I'm trying to drop it on Facebook because the software doesn't connect. Rent the movie. Here. Boom. Okay. Excellent. So the way that I am recording this, I'm going to be pulling the audio from this to put into a podcast. So the idea is that the podcast, people will be able to hit play on the podcast the same time that they hit play on the movie, and then the timestamps will sync up. For this, I will show you a timestamp here in just a minute, so you will make sure that you are in the right place. But for that, I have to, this is my like welcome and let everybody get settled in and get your movie pulled up. Hassani's in the house now, so we can get the party started. So Hassani, how are you? How is your day? Did you have a wonderful birthday? It was Hassani's birthday 2 days ago. Mwah, all of my love to you. He canceled his social plans. That was his birthday gift to himself, was not hanging out with people. Which that says something about your level of dedication to spending time alone, that after a pandemic, a year of all of this, you were like, it's still too much. He's good. He's good. Excellent. Cool. Hassani, do you have the movie pulled up? DR, do you have the movie pulled up? I see you two in the chat for sure. Let me know when you're ready. Give me like a thumbs up or something like that. Little updates here. I put this on my wall and Hassani's ready. Excellent. And when I put it on the wall, I specifically framed it in this shot so it would be right here. But then I sat down and my camera was like this. So then I had to tip it and now it looks all uneven and wild. So what are you going to do? It's fine. We'll get there. I'll make peace with this room eventually and do something more creative with it. Getting on Amazon. You got Prime. Okay, cool. I'll give you just another like 30 seconds here, DR, to get your IFC free trial started up. I'm super excited about this. I watched this movie last night for the first time and took a bunch of notes, and like, it is so fun. I don't know what I was expecting. Like, I don't watch a lot of Westerns, and this is like, you know, the Western turned into the spaghetti Western turned into the kimchi Western, which we'll talk about. But I was just kind of like, I don't know what I'm getting into, but the title, like just the title and the faces on the poster, I was like, this is gonna be fun. And it did not disappoint. So, all right, DR, how you doing? You ready? I think we might jump in and get the party started, and then you can always catch up with us because we'll have the timestamp on screen. So let me move all my windows around. I've got 3 monitors jumping right here. So he's ready. Excellent. Hassani, do you have the iTunes link? I'll drop it one more time in the Twitch so that you have it. If you wouldn't mind dropping that throughout the stream just to make sure people are able to catch up with us when the time comes. Excellent. All right. So we're going to bring the timestamp on screen and I'm going to count us down. And on 0, we're all going to hit play and then it's going to be beautiful. And if you miss it, then you've got the timestamp. So whenever you want, you can just sync back up. Great. So hit play on 0, 3, 2, 1, 0. And we're playing. Excellent. All right. My name is Rebecca Marquardt. This is the official beginning of the podcast. Yay! Hopefully you hit play on this podcast at the same time you hit play on the movie, The Good, the Bad, the Weird. If not, just line up that movie time with the podcast time and everything will be beautiful and wonderful and perfect. We're watching The Good, Bad, the Weird, and tonight my guest, I'm very excited to introduce him. I have to pull up his bio though, because I'm a dummy and that was the one thing that I didn't open up. We met, so I moved to Austin last fall. and joined this Facebook group that was like Austin filmmakers. And then I posted in there and I was like, hey, does anyone want to do this like speed dating thing and just like come hang out and meet? And he came and was one of those people and just loved what he had to say. And I knew that he worked, volunteered as a reader with the Austin Film Festival. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, I want to submit a thing there. So anyway, reached out to him, started chatting with him a little bit. And yeah, I was like, I'm making this series and I would love to have you on. So his bio, Frank J. Kim, I'm going to bring him on. Well, no, I'll bring him on screen at the end of the bio. How about that? He was born in Los Angeles, California in 1978, the same day that a computer programmer named Fred Newman. Oh, wait, no, I'm going to bring him on because we're already in the movie. And I want to bring, hello, Frank.
Hey.
I was like, wait, we're already missing part of the movie. We'll spread your bio out throughout this whole thing.
Yeah, it's not that impressive anyway.
No, it's great. So you were born in California, and then you basically grew up all around Texas. You lived in South Korea for 2 years, but your parents came to the US from South Korea, right?
That's correct.
That's the short version of the non-professional bio, just the like literal where are you from bio.
Exactly.
Nice.
And in terms of the movie, this is just a setup where there's a map. There's a treasure map. This is the big MacGuffin of the movie.
What is a MacGuffin?
So a MacGuffin, it was a term that I believe Alfred Hitchcock popularized. I don't know if he actually originated it, but it's anything in a movie or a show that's the thing that all the other characters are trying to get or defeat. Like in Raiders of the Lost Ark, it's the Ark of the Covenant is the MacGuffin. So yeah.
Okay. I like that. 39. Okay, there we go. All right. I'm in sync now also.
Okay, cool.
Sweet. Technology is wild.
It is wild. I mean, even just a few years ago, something like this would have been so much more difficult to do.
Or potentially even impossible. I mean, even just this software, like I use StreamYard to run this stream, and even just 6 months ago, what you could do with it is nothing compared to what you can do with it now. So it's pretty wild.
Yeah. So I feel like I should probably explain. Not to mansplain or anything, but
no, please.
Some people are unfamiliar with the history of Korea, of this region known as Manchuria and Korea and Japan and Russia, and kind of how they kind of all contested for this territory. So this movie takes place right before World War II, and Japan, for those who don't know, Japan was an empire at one point, and it took over vast swaths of Asia, including Korea and northern Korea, and what is now part of the Russia, called Manchuria, this big region of land. And so this movie is taking place in Manchuria, and Manchuria is very much like these sort of like old west desert kind of regions, as you'll see, like, very sparsely populated and like scrubs everywhere and like desert. So it's kind of brilliant that the writer and director of this movie decided to do a Western here, because it is kind of like a Western environment in a lot of ways. And there was a lot of, Manchuria was like kind of like the Old West in terms of like, it could be a lawless region where people could just go and do whatever, felonious activities they wanted to sometimes. So,
yeah. No, I mean, it really is the perfect background. Do you know where they actually filmed this? I couldn't find that online.
I was wondering about that too. I haven't actually looked it up. I would be very amazed if it was actually Manchuria, because but I don't know. Let's see if Google knows the answer to this.
I know, right? What is Manchuria? It's not on the map today, right? Like there's not a geographic location called Manchuria now, is there?
Correct. Yeah, it's not. No. Yeah, it's just part of Eastern Russia.
Yeah, I appreciate you sharing that history, and that like reaffirms my research, because I was like, I looked up Manchuria to be like, where does this take place? And Google Maps was like, I don't know what you're asking me. Did a deeper dive, and I was like, well, what's the history of Korea? And it was like, oh, I probably don't have time to learn the whole history of Korea. But I was able to hone in on like, okay, it seems like probably this is like maybe 1940s, like early 1940s, somewhere in that ballpark. But yeah, that it was Japan was sort of over everything, and people were trying to, break free, get their freedom, and actually,
Right. And this is it's so according to the Hollywood Reporter, it was filmed in the Gobi Desert in northern China. So
northern China. Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, it's interesting because this is a whole thing. Like in Korean society, this whole time period is problematic to say the least, because we were an occupied people basically, and Japan came in and destroyed a lot of our cultural artifacts and burned books and scrolls, and they basically tried to erase Korean history. And so there's kind of like this undercurrent of that in this movie without it being like over the head. But yeah, so there's like a lot of what the Japanese are doing, like taking cultural artifacts from Korea and China too, of course, because they occupied parts of China. And just like the Nazis did, they would take it back to Japan, and like the aristocracy would end up owning a lot of this stuff.
Yeah. Well, it seems like that's fairly accurately represented in this movie, at least, like, especially toward the end, not to spoil the end, but it's like this guy is chasing this guy, and then all of a sudden the Japanese army comes in and is just like, just kill everybody. It's like, oh God. Which, it's done in this movie in a way that's actually like funny and lighthearted, but it's like, oh no, but that's what happened.
That's exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
Right now, or there has been a movement for the last few years of the descendants of Japanese comfort women, which were basically, sex slaves. That these women were forced into sexual slavery to serve the Japanese, and they would get pregnant, and their children and their children's children are asking for reparations from the Japanese government. And for the most part, it's kind of an uphill battle. The Japanese have not even remotely indicated that they're willing to do that. And in fact, they have said that they've actively been rewriting their history books to leave out a large portions of what happened during the occupation of Korea and parts of China.
Yeah.
So it's
that doesn't sound familiar at all. I don't think that's ever happened
right?
in the United States.
Yeah. This is just a one-off in all of human history.
Yeah. They were very creative. I love this whole opening. There's several shots that I think just establish the world so ridiculously well. But like the opening shot, even from the outside, just seeing the train and then watching him walk through the train. And like, obviously from the movie poster, he's the weird, but like, I didn't know he was going to turn out to also be like a thief pulling out. Like, I was like, oh, he's going to be like this weird third wheel that keeps like interfering between the good guy and the bad guy. So when he like throws that thing off and pulls out guns, I was like, yeah, this is amazing.
Yeah.
And he is, oh, go ahead.
Oh, well, the actor who plays him, of course, is well known in Korea, but also now more so in America or for Western audiences because of his work in Parasite.
I did not make that connection.
I'm glad I mentioned something.
My gosh. Yeah, because he is so funny in this. There's even a moment that I specifically put in my outline that I was like, this is such a funny move in his that it's like, I don't think it's something that was like in the script. Like it was just him being a very funny actor.
He is a very funny actor. Yeah. I mean, he's kind of like Tom Hanks to me, like the Korean version of it, because he does comedy so well, but then he'll do like really dramatic, serious roles too. So really versatile actor.
That's awesome. So this part confused me a little bit because all these people show up on horses and I didn't know if they were like part of the bad guy or part of the good guy. So I was like, hang on, wait, how many different groups of people are trying to overtake this train at once?
Right.
But then once they're in the train, you start to connect the dots and it's like, okay, this guy's giving orders here. So we know what's I know what's going on now. Oh.
Man.
So this version that we are watching is the international edit. There was a Korean edit, which is actually about 7 minutes longer. But Kim Ji-woo said this is actually the preferred ending. Like this one ends the way he wanted it to end. I don't know why the Korean one has a different ending if it's not what he wanted. But I thought that was an interesting fact, because that's especially with this series trying to make sure everybody's watching one the same length so the timestamps line up. I was like, oh, there's multiple cuts for different countries. And then actually, I'll try to point it out when we get to the scene, but in the UK, an additional 5 seconds of the film were cut out because horses fall, and so they deemed it animal cruelty. So they had to cut those out. And I found it really interesting that it was like, no, you can have the animal cruelty in the making of the film. You just can't have it shown on screen. I was like, oh, that's kind of disappointing, but like,
right. Yeah.
I don't know. Nikki, welcome, Nikki. Spent 5 minutes trying to land on the correct time. You can do it. I've found, so I just hover over the movie timeline at a time that's approaching, and then I count down to, and then I just click it right at that moment. That's my hack for lining up the timestamps. Okay. Oh, go ahead.
I'm wondering on the chat here, is there a way that I can chat? I don't see.
I think you have to drop your own comments in. I think you would have to open up like a YouTube window or something, YouTube or Twitch. This crew, most of my crew tends to be on Twitch. It's the most real time, and I think it's the live streaming platform most people are comfortable with.
Gotcha.
It seems like it's where all the gamers got things started.
Right.
If anybody has questions at all, you're welcome to drop those in the comments too. Where did my movie go? There it is. So let's talk through your bio then. As far as like creative arts and filmmaking and stuff, you gave me feedback on my short film script that was just like phenomenal. I really appreciated the fact that you were like, these are the things that you did well, and this is your story, and you made your story, and here are the parts that are great about it. And then you were able to say, you're submitting this for screenwriting competitions, and here's what they're probably going to tell you, because they look for these specific things. That doesn't mean that this thing is not a great, wonderful piece of art on its own. Not that mine specifically is like, oh my gosh, it's beautiful. But it's like everything that you can create has validity and has its own importance, and has its, that it's like, it can just be like a lovely world that you create visually. It doesn't have to follow like a formula. But you were great about saying like, hey, for the sake of these competitions, they're going to look for a little bit of formulaic elements. And so here are things that you can incorporate if you want to, or don't, and just make this film exactly the way it is. And that's also great. And I thought that was really nice, because I think people tend to just like straight to those like, okay, what do the other people want from it? So let me tell you how to make it that way. Right.
Yeah, and I'll just say too, since most of your audience hasn't probably read your script, I thought it was a great story. It's a really touching story of these two girls, and one girl works in a bowling alley, and yeah, I don't know, it's just something like, I was like, man, I could totally see this as a short film that just whether it goes into the festival circuit or not, but just like being shown somewhere and people watching it and like walking away with a kind of, this warm feeling inside, because it's so heartfelt. So yeah, really enjoyed it.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I think that's really what I like. I'm drawn to joy, and I want to create opportunities for joy, for people to just like feel good. And I think, I tend to write more stories that are about like struggles or more serious topics. But even within that world, it's about finding the joy in it and finding the happy moments and finding, the silver lining in situations.
Yeah, totally. I think we need more of that kind of storytelling, honestly.
Yeah. So. Okay, wait, we're going to come back to your bio, but I feel like we need to jump in and talk about the story, because now so we've got the weird, we've got there's the bad, who's got some major Johnny Depp vibes. And then we've got the good, who's finally shown up. Finally, I mean, it's been 15 minutes. He has now arrived on the scene, making his appearance. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting that they all have, like, each of the main characters has a different way that they fight and a different look, and the good guy has this rifle, this Winchester, and it's pretty. I don't know. That was an interesting choice because the only other Western I could think of where like the protagonist use a rifle almost exclusively is this Tom Selleck Western called Quigley Down Under that came out back in like 1988 or 89, something like that. Yeah, I don't know. It's different because I always associate and especially in the spaghetti westerns, like the good guy will inevitably have a point where he's got the showdown in the middle of the street and he's got his 6-shooters.
Yeah.
But here, yeah, he just uses that rifle.
Well, I think it also really establishes him as like he is such a good shot that he can just have the two, like I assume it's not a thing where you can attach like a magazine and you've got a bunch of, it's like, nope,
right.
You fire it once, you reload, you fire,
Yeah.
That it's like, oh, and he still wins like pretty much every time. That's insane. And he doesn't have a whole posse behind him like the bad guy does.
Right. Yeah. He's like the archetypal loner in these westerns. I love like these kinds of set pieces too, because I don't know exactly how much, if any of this is CGI, but because it looks like they just did it like real, like with the actual train, and so I just love all the coordination that goes into this kind of scene.
Yeah, no, I think it's really impressive. Like things that have a lot of technical elements in them. Like I wish that I could have just like been a fly on the wall during the rehearsal process and planning just to see like what goes into actually pulling off something like that.
Yeah.
I think the bird at the beginning of the whole film with CGI, I feel like is a pretty safe bet, which was funny because it started and we did Labyrinth last week, which also opens with a CGI bird like flying through and like, I was like, 2 weeks in a row. What are we going to watch next week? Oh, yes. Hassani, can we mention how dope all the music, what word did you, dope music. That was one of the things that I specifically wrote down is like, the music, like this part is this might be the part that I was like, it sounds like 007. Like nothing about the music in this entire film is subtle. Like it's like the music is there because they want you to hear the music. And that's so like I played piano for improv shows and sketch comedy. And like my approach as a music director was like, if you notice the piano, they're not doing it right. Like that's not the thing you should be focusing on. But in this, it's like, it just adds so much to the film to just be like, and now we've got Glenn Campbell and a little bit of jazz, or we've got, and you're just like, where did this come from? Like it would be the most random soundtrack to listen to. Cause you're just like, I have no idea what's next. Awesome.
Yeah. And I like these guys, I assume they're Mongolians. They're just like watching this whole mayhem unfold.
That whole part to me felt like vaguely like Wes Anderson, like just these like quirky characters on the outside, just kind of like, interesting.
Yeah. I read a review where someone described some of the chase scenes in this movie as George Miller-esque, referring to like the Mad Max films, and I can kind of see that because there are like, it's not like this movie is like Fury Road where it's one long chase, but there are definitely these like extended chases where now, he's got on that motorcycle and then the other dude's going to chase after him on a horse. And, like there's still the train thing happening. It's just crazy. Like how it just will go and evolve.
Yep. That's awesome. Okay, so tell me what got you into filmmaking? Like go back to the very beginning where you first were like, I think this is the thing I want to try. Like, did you make random videos or films when you were in like middle school or high school? Or was it straight into just like, I'm going to study film at school? Like, what was your start?
Yeah. I always loved writing in general. I was one of those kids that had Legos and I would just make all kinds of like, I would copy like episodes that I saw in the Transformers or like when I was growing up, Airwolf was a show and about this like super high tech helicopter. So, I'd like make stuff like that with my Legos and then create stories around it. And then later I'd start writing them down. And then I always loved movies and television in general too. So I think it was just a confluence of all that, like loving the storytelling, writing aspect of it. And then, later when pretty much when I was in high school, I have a friend who some of you may know, Gus Sorolla, who's on Rooster Teeth. He's one of the founding members.
Nice.
Gus and I, we grew up together in this small border town called Eagle Pass. It's just it's border town of like 12,000 people. I think were living there at the time that I was there.
Yeah.
And and then we also had a third friend named Ruben Valadez. And we like, I see the Gus. Yeah. Well, the whole.
Hang on, this moment here with the money.
Oh yeah.
Where he like, I love how like poorly he hides it. Like he passes it to him, and then they see people walking by, and he's like,
he's just
not yet. Just kidding. It's so good. I was like, I have to point that one out. Okay, sorry.
Gosh.
So
No
in the
worries.
valley.
Well, so Eagle Pass wasn't even in the valley. That's the thing too. It was like north of the valley. It's
okay.
You know what? It looks a lot like this movie because it's like sparse. Like it's a desert. You'd see like scrubs and stuff, and then a hill or two occasionally. But so how I met Gus actually was I started my freshman year of high school there, and my first day in high school I lost my schedule, so I had to go to the principal's office, or like where all the administrators are, get a new schedule. So I was late coming to my first class of that day, and the only seat that was left was right next to Gus and Ruben. And so I sat down and just started talking, and we discovered I guess it was we discovered we're all nerds, and we love science and math, and so I guess maybe we banded together so we can get beaten up at school, but that's how I met Gus. And so we ended up making like just these really crappy movies on our VHS camcorders. I forget who had one. It was Ruben or Gus. One of them had this camcorder, and then we each owned VCRs at our homes. So our editing process was like you play a cassette of something that we shot in one VCR, and then record whatever that segment is into a blank cassette on the other VCR. Then you have to stop that VCR and then put in a different, it was just like,
the tapes. Yeah. That's amazing. I feel like the Duplass brothers talked about, like, I think their book, they talk about that's how they made their first film, where it's like, it's literally like, okay, let me find the part. Okay, now pause. Okay, now put this one in, then record, and then, I can't imagine. I can see myself wanting to do that as a kid, but I just never had, like, I think if I'd had a partner in crime, I would have made all kinds of videos, but it was just like me sort of like, I'll just watch more TV. Like, I have no idea where to even begin.
Well, it definitely, I will say it definitely helped to have partners in crime, because without Gus and Ruben, I don't think I would have gone to anywhere near that much trouble, even though I love the process so much. But So it's a lot. Yeah. I mean, this is, we don't even have like microphones or, other than the onboard microphone and the camcorder, but it was still a lot, like, cause we would do things like, I'll never forget. I wish I would have kept this somewhere, because especially now that Gus is famous, it would be awesome to embarrass him with this. But we made this movie. It was like a short for it was an anthropology class or sociology class, something like that. And our topic was to research Tibetan monks. And we're supposed to like write a report, right? But Gus and Ruben and I were like, let's make a movie. Like let's, we have the equipment, and like, let's just do this. And the teacher said, okay. And so we spent like 2 weekends, I think, shooting this thing. And it is so lo-fi. Like at one point we were saying like Tibetan monks practice magic. And so we were like, how do we show that? And so someone happened to have a skull of this longhorn just in their backyard. Oh, so
I was like, a skull. Oh, a longhorn skull. Yeah.
A longhorn. Yeah. No, it was a human skull. I'm just trying to. But yeah, so like we were, and I'm the token Asian in not only that group, but like the whole school. Like Eagle Pass is predominantly Hispanic, and I think that there were like it was me and two other Asian kids in the entire school of like 3,000 kids. So anyway, so I of course was the Buddhist monk, and they found. We made like a we took a bathrobe that was like yellowish orange, and that was my monk's robe. And then we found like some other like scarf or something wrapped around. So it vaguely looked like a Buddhist monk's robes. And so the magic was we had the camcorder rolling, and I held up this longhorn skull, and then I had to they had to cut, and I just hold very still while Ruben came and took the skull out of my hands, and then we resumed rolling. So it looks like it
just disappeared.
Yeah.
That's
like
awesome.
It was stuff like that, like we were doing. And then, but it was, this was in the 90s, early 90s. And so when we showed the final cut to our class, everyone was like really impressed, and our teacher gave us an A. But I mean, I'm just
like now you could just use Premiere Pro and just completely delete the skull. Like you could just have the skull and just cut it out,
Oh, totally.
And people would be like, yeah, I know. I saw that on TikTok yesterday, but a 13-year-old did it. Like
exactly. I mean, and nowadays, it would be in like 4K and it would look amazing. And like we're shooting on this old camcorder. I don't even know what the resolution on those camcorders is.
Yeah.
But yeah, it can have been great. Yeah.
That's awesome. So did you study film or writing or anything? What did you study in school? Did you go to college for?
Yeah. I ended up going to college for business. So that's my actual degree is in business management. This is your audience is now probably getting a sense of how old I am, because I graduated from college in 2003. And so, yeah, like I did the business thing for a long time. And I always kind of in the back of my mind, I was like, it'll be cool to be a screenwriter, but that's like a pipe dream. But then I ended up getting laid off from 4 different tech companies over like the next 10 years or so. And and after the last layoff, I was just like, I might as well just go dive fully into acting and filmmaking. Like, what have I got to lose? Like all these companies,
the world is like, maybe not this one. Maybe not this.
At a certain point, you just got to take the hint. So and so this was around like 2011 or so. I was doing this whole other seminar on creativity, and the homework assignment was basically like, what is it that you want to do with your life that if you didn't do, you would regret. And so I realized for me it was screenwriting and filmmaking. Nice. So I just I'd never been to film school or anything. I just started telling people like, hey, I want to be a filmmaker. What do I need to know to do that?
Yeah. And
I ended up talking to enough people that I got some leads, and one person suggested this course online called screenwritingu.com. So anyone out there, if you're watching, screenwritingu.com is amazing.
There you go.
Yeah. They're not paying me anything to say this plug either. But it's run by this guy named Hal Krosman, and he's just a great screenwriter. Well, what his real talent is that he can break things down. He used to be this corporate trainer, so he was in the corporate world also. And he knows how to take any subject, any body of knowledge, and just break it down and then teach that to people in an effective way. So I ended up doing this online course for a year, learned all the ins and outs of screenwriting, and then just started making stuff.
Nice.
Making stuff with friends. I would volunteer as a PA on all kinds of film projects around Austin. I ended up getting into acting actually because I want to be a director, and I thought if I'm going to be a director, I need to know how to talk to actors, and I didn't really know much about acting. So then I got into that, and that ended up becoming this whole thing for a while. Even now, still, I have an agent, and that was how I was making most of my money until the pandemic happened. So yeah.
Oh, wow. I think that there is something about Texas is so big, and in a lot of ways it feels very separate especially from LA or New York City, where it's like the idea that you're like, oh, I could be a filmmaker, I could work in Hollywood. Like that doesn't, it seems like, no, I think you're kind of just born into that. Like if you don't already know exactly how to get there, there's no way that you could get there. So like, don't even, like I played oboe all through college and grad school. That I have a master's degree in oboe performance from the Cincinnati Conservatory. But when I was in high school and I was looking at universities to go to study music, I had heard of Juilliard, but like it never even crossed my mind to apply there because it was like, that's for people whose like parents are classical musicians and they've been playing violin since they were 2 years old. And it's like, yes, but it's also for people who haven't had that story, but they happen to be good. And then my senior year of high school, I was in the all-state orchestra. I ranked second of all the oboists in Texas. And the girl ahead of me went to Eastman and the guy behind me went to Juilliard. And I was like, what? How are you going to Juilliard? And he lived in Edinburgh, I think. So it was like, how did you, you can be from Edinburgh and then go to what? And it was like, this like light came on. It was like, interesting. But I had the same thing. I like studied music all through grad school. And then I was 23 and I was like, I don't know. Like I took my first professional audition. I played professionally through college, through school. But then took my first professional audition. It was like 6 months of work, drive all the way to Buffalo, New York, like just the insane hoops that you had to jump through. And then it was like, oh, I don't really even want to get this job. Like what? So I just quit music entirely and I moved to Chicago to do comedy. Because I was at the time, 30 Rock was like all the rage. And I was like, Tina Fey is my spirit animal. So I was like, I'll just do what she did. And she went to do improv in Chicago. So I was like, great. So yeah, I think there's something about that, like being from Texas and feeling like, oh, that's a whole other world.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know if anyone on this stream is from outside of Texas, but that's unfortunately, and rightly so, Texas has this reputation for being kind of a backward state. And our governor definitely contributes to that. But in a lot of other ways, it is very progressive in the sense that people here basically will, whether it's entertainment or politics or business, what have you, people will see that there is something that is possible, and then they just start doing it. And I, in the film industry here in Austin, especially, like a lot of my friends, they've never been to film school. We learn about making films through like YouTube and stuff.
This is another one of those sequences that just shows like the depth of this massive world that he's living in.
Man.
It's like, it's not necessary. You don't have to see all of that. It just makes it so much more meaningful. Also, where the hell is this? What is all of this?
Yeah, I know. This set is amazing to me.
Yeah. Once it got to this shot and it opens up and there's this like weird, shady looking bridge that goes on, then it's like, that doesn't look stable. And I was like, what is this place?
Yeah.
I don't know. It's fascinating. It's just such detail that just adds to the whole thing.
I think that, it makes sense that this is in the Gobi Desert because in various parts of Western China going into the Middle Eastern regions of the world, there are these places where there are old Buddhist statues like several stories high that are just built into the sides of these mountains and whatnot. Cool. And yeah, it's pretty cool. But yeah, so I was on Battle Angel Alita as a background extra for like a day. And that movie, that experience showed me, and then like I see this confirmed here in movies like this, where big budget movies, it's not just about the CGI. It's that when a production company has a lot of money, they can just build these sets. And it's incredible. Like just as a lowly background extra being because in Battle Angel Alita, it's Rob Rodriguez's team built an entire future city, basically. Like if you go and watch that movie, yes, there's a lot of CGI in the background, but in the foreground elements, all those buildings are real. And not only do they build these buildings, but like inside of the buildings, there will be like little tchotchkes and like books and paintings. It's like, that's never going to be seen on the camera, but it's just there because like, as an actor, you show up and you're like, oh, I don't even have to try hard. Like I'm in the world now. I know how to play this character,
it adds all of it for you that you're not, it's not like, okay, let me imagine that this journal has things written on it. It's like, oh no, there's stuff. So just read it. Instead of pretending like you're reading, just read.
You can, you could literally, and so like when I'm seeing like, here in the background too, you'll see like these little like glass flasks and bottles and like books. And I mean, that's where all the money goes for these big budget movies or not all of it, but like a lot of it goes to just build out this world so that it's not only immersive for the audience, but for the actors who are in it.
Yep. Well, and having all those extras too. I mean, it's like, it would have been weird if we saw that giant, massive scene and there's just nobody there, right? It's like, okay,
right, yeah.
Well, now you got hundreds of actors who are showing up. So then you also have to have all of the people in charge of saying, yes, your hair looks good. Your makeup looks good. You're wearing the right outfit. Now stand over here. Okay, here's some food for you. Here, it's like it just builds exponentially, but it's so important to actually telling the story.
It is, yeah. Yeah, when for Battle Angel Alita, our call time was at like 6. I think it was actually like 5:45. It was like super early in the morning. And the reason is because they had hundreds of extras. And so every extra had to go in and get makeup and hair done and then get wardrobe approved. And that takes a lot of time, even with a whole team of hair and makeup artists and wardrobe people. So yeah, it's a massive undertaking. It's like an army, honestly.
Yeah.
Like they have to figure out like their logistics, their supply chains. Like, how do you feed everyone? Because everyone has to get, we had breakfast tacos, and then we had like lunch, and then people who stayed later to shoot into the evening, they had dinner. So it's amazing.
I think the only extra work that I've really done was an indie film shot in Brooklyn. And I was like one of the people who worked at the food co-op. And it was literally like, I just like sat around almost all day. They gave me a specific shirt to wear. And then I just had like jeans, and they were like, yeah, your hair in a ponytail looks great. And I just like sat there and I watched as they were like, great, cut. And then I just sat and watched them rearrange lights. It was like, we just have to spend the next 2 hours moving lights around. And then once the lights are done, and the actors are getting their hair and makeup fixed for the next scene. And then we bring, and then I think ultimately I was in the film for like I literally walked past in front of the camera carrying a thing, and then I set it down and I it's like, but you don't believe that it's a food co-op if there's nobody there, if it's only the person who owns it and then her friend comes to visit, or who runs it, and then her friend who comes to visit. You're like, that's not a real food co-op.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. It's wild.
It's amazing. Like as actors, there's this whole thing about hurry up and wait. And that's like the philosophy on film sets. You have to hurry up and get ready for the shot, do the shot. And then now you wait for, like you said, 2 hours for the lights to get moved.
Yep.
By the way, so this scene, I love this whole sequence.
I was going to say the granny bit is like the best thing ever. That he's like, you're going to outlive me. And then all of a sudden bullets are flying and you're like, she's going to survive. I hope. Like, you're like, she has to. I want her to.
They can't kill the granny.
They can't be that bad of a bad guy, right?
Right.
That's amazing. So when this movie came out, so it was at film festivals in 2008, and then I think it came out in 2009. But as of 2009, it was the most expensive movie ever made, South Korean movie ever made. But then it ended up being the second highest grossing South Korean movie, behind, now I can't find, Scandal Makers.
Oh. Huh.
Fun facts about money stuff.
Yeah.
Okay. And then this quote. So you had mentioned this too when you pitched this movie, that it's a kimchi Western. I found this quote in the IMDb trivia that Kim Jee-woon, the director, referred to it as kimchi Western, not unlike an Italian spaghetti Western. He said, the plot and film are spicy and vibrant, just like Korean culture and people. And I was like, oh, that's fun. And then I was like, okay, wait, I'm German and British descent. And I was like, how would I describe either of those groups? And I was like, not spicy. That would probably be the last word I would use.
What's funny to me about all of that is, like when I was growing up, all my white friends, because I grew up in Houston mainly, and so all my white friends are like, ooh, Asian women are so exotic, and there's a whole Asian fetish thing going on, right? But part of it part of it was like they would be like, oh, it must be great because if you have a Korean girlfriend or a Korean wife, like she's always going to be submissive and she's going to do what you tell her to do. This is kids talking the 80s, so they're not the most PC. But but I'd always laugh at that because I'm like, you have no idea what you're talking about. Like Korean women are some of the most like assertive and just outspoken people. Like you try to tell a Korean lady to do something, she'll probably just smack you. Like it's just it's so weird how like these kind of cultural stereotypes form and everything.
I mean, I think a lot of it, and honestly, it's one of the few complaints that I do have about this movie, is the way that people are represented in film and television. And like, especially stuff that's made in the US that features Asian actors, like the kind of stereotypes that get layered on them there, where it's like, great, we're reinforcing this narrative and trying to retell this story, that it's like pretty much all of the women in this film, minus the granny, are some variation of sex worker, and they are just there to pleasure the men. So yeah, this film did not pass the Bechdel test. I always bring that up. And then I always try to check like how is the diversity of the film. And like last week was Labyrinth, and it was literally like, well, David Bowie is like the diversity. He is the token diversity person. It's like, that's sad. So it's like, I mean, this is a South Korean film, right? So it's like, all right, generally for me, my complaint about diversity is just, is it a bunch of straight white cis mostly dudes? Not really interested. If it's like, great, this is a story about Asian people, I don't need it to have diversity beyond Asian people, right? Like, no, this is a specific anyway.
Well, and actually, even for a South Korean movie, I would say it's diverse because they're using people from the Gobi Desert region, Mongolians, plus Japanese actors too. So Japanese, South Korean, no,
that's awesome. But so I think it's that narrative of like, what story are we telling in our film and in our television that is reinforcing bad narratives. Like this is something. So the short film that you read for me, it's called Pin Setter, for people who are watching and haven't read it, which is probably everybody. But one of my first jobs was setting pins in a 9-pin bowling alley. So it's like there weren't machines because it's 4 lanes and it's this same bowling alley that's been there for a million years. I don't even think they make machines for 9-pin setups. So you just like, if you have a team, you just find a kid and you pay them whatever they will, like whatever you want to pay them. And they just go sit back there. And, thanks for the cheer, Bridget. And they set the pins up for you and they send the ball back to you and they do, and it was just such a fascinating world that I've never seen on screen. And I was like, I want to do something with that. What do I do with that? And then a friend was talking about a short film she's making that's about a young queer person. And, we were both like, we don't want being queer to be the story, right? We don't want it to be their conflict or their struggle is all about being queer. Because like even in 2020, one of the big holiday movies that came out was about a woman, an adult woman, who still hadn't come out to her family after being in a relationship with this woman for a year. And it's like, it's Happiest Season, which is Clea Duvall. I adore Clea Duvall. I enjoyed the movie, but it's like in 2020, do we really need more stories that reinforce how difficult it is to come out and how scary that process is? Whereas like, I feel like if we can just start to just work queer stories into normal narratives, we can just say, hey, look, it's fine. People are gay. Just deal with it. Like we can show it often enough that then gay people be like, oh, I see myself, and they don't hate themselves. And that's exciting. And then non-gay people, non-queer people can just be like, oh, okay, that's normal. And they're treated well. So I guess it's okay. I think it can make a difference over time. So that's a big thing for me is like, I'm not saying I'll never make a movie about somebody's coming out story, but it's just not a narrative that I am drawn to because I want to change that narrative that other people, especially young people, are consuming. So
yeah, for sure.
Where are we at? Have we missed another? Nope, my next one hasn't happened yet. Cool. Okay, so we're gonna do some quick questions. And everybody watching, you're welcome to drop your own answers in the chat also. So Frank, what is your go-to movie theater snack?
Ooh. I mean, I love buttery popcorn, but I can't eat it anymore because it makes my stomach so upset now. So
Oh,
yeah, it's kind of sad. I guess when I go to the Alamo Draft House though, what I really love are their it's the what do you call it? The buffalo wings, but not with the buffalo style. It's with the Asian style. They use like a soy glaze on the
ooh,
wings. So yeah, I would say that's my
that sounds
go-to.
delicious. That's Bridget is saying popcorn with coconut oil might help, but you can't bring your own coconut oil to add on movie theater popcorn.
Yeah.
That's not gonna. You can bring maybe some seasoning, but that I would be very like if somebody came in. I love the idea of being in a movie theater and somebody pulls out their popcorn and they just pull out a jar of coconut oil and they're just like dip it in the coconut oil. Like I don't think I'd even watch the movie. I would just be like, "What is happening?" That would be amazing. What was the last movie that you saw before the pandemic hit in the theaters? Do you remember?
Wow. I think it was Parasite, actually.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
I didn't see that one until I was at home.
Oh, okay.
It was really, oh no. Actually, no, I think I did see it in theater, but I saw my last one was Portrait of a Lady on Fire. Portrait of a Lady on Fire? Suddenly I don't remember the name of the movie. I've seen it a million times.
Yeah.
Hasani's gonna think I'm joking because I literally talk about that movie so much. Okay, okay, if you could watch an old movie, like first time to be able to watch a movie in a jam-packed movie theater, and it's not something new that hasn't come out, what movie would you want to watch?
Wow. Oof. Probably the original Star Wars, because I only saw that as a kid on VCR.
Nice.
Although,
Yep. Bridget said Star Wars too.
Nice. And also, I would love to have seen Lawrence of Arabia on the big screen. Like
nice.
when it first came out, because like I have seen it on a big screen since, like, the Alamo Draft House does those kind of retrospectives, but like to see it for the first time with the audience that's seeing it for the first time, I think would be really cool because it's such an epic movie.
Nice.
But yeah.
I love this moment that's happening right now in this movie. Just like the absurdity of him, like, and I like that he gets this look of joy on his face, and he's like, "I did it! I got out of the house," and he just runs gleefully, and then is like, "Oh, hey, what's up? Cool. I'm gonna just go back in the house." It's amazing. Okay, and then right after this, there's a movie playing in the background, and I can't tell if it's a real movie. This movie that he's watching right here. I don't know if anybody can hear enough of it. I typed in what I could hear and Googled to see if, like, is this a movie based on these lines? And if it is, it didn't give me any results.
I see what you mean about this guy having Johnny Depp vibes.
It's the like the straightened hair, right, covering the part of the face that I don't know what Johnny Depp character it is, but like I was like, oh, if they did like an American remake, I could see Johnny Depp having been cast in this role. Like
Although he's kind of gained a little weight lately.
So. Maybe not now, but like at one point in time in his career, like this would have been right up his alley.
Yeah.
Okay, wait. I have more quick questions. Let me see. What's a movie or a TV show that Hasani thinks it is definitely an old movie? I don't know. We'll see. We'll see if we can find it. Okay. We'll add it to the IMDb trivia page for it.
Yeah.
A movie or a TV show you've seen recently that you were like, I wish I had something to do with making this.
Ooh. That's a good question. Well, the OA, it's not quite as recent anymore, but yeah, that's a show. Like I was sick when I first saw the first season, and it was one of those shows that I binged completely the first season, and during that whole several hours of watching it, like I forgot that I was sick. It was just like so engrossing. Nice. Yeah.
That's awesome.
So yeah, really.
That's my mom actually was telling me about that. She's a woman that lives with her that helps kind of take care of the house and keep things up and running, but she's like obsessed with it. So then she got my mom hooked on it. My mom's like, you gotta watch the OA. And I feel like I watched part of it, but it was I don't know what it was. Like something kept me from really getting into it. So I need to go back and try it again.
It is a very unusual story too. I'll say that. Like the creative risks that they take are, especially in the second season. Oh my God. There's stuff in the second season that I was watching and I was like, I felt like I was reading old Jorge Luis Borges. Are you familiar with him?
I have no idea who that is.
Oh, okay. He was this writer that would write just these like it's fantasy, but it's not like Tolkien fantasy. It's like just really bizarre, like just out there stuff. Very, very avant-garde, actually. Like he's kind of like the Salvador Dali, I guess, of like writers. He lived around the same time. And so when I was watching the second season of the OA, especially, I was like, this feels like one of those, like him having written like a television series, basically. But anyway, yeah. So I just love that show. I'm so sad they canceled it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll have to go look at. I just finished Undone on Amazon, which is like, it has elements of fantasy, and like it's one of those stories where you're like, I don't know if this is really happening or it's just happening in her head and she has like mental health issues. Like there's a lot of that, and then there are big elements of grief in it. It's like her dad died, and then a pilot, she starts seeing him and talking to him, and he's trying to teach her how to time travel to go back in time to save his life. And she gets in a car accident right at that same time when she first sees him. But it's an animated series. It was co-created by, I forget his name, but the guy that made BoJack Horseman, and then one of his writers. And Katie Purdy, I think Kate Purdy is actually from San Antonio, Texas. And so it's set in San Antonio, but it's animated, and it's just so great because then it's like it seamlessly segues in and out of different time periods and locations, and just like they really take advantage of it being animated and just do all kinds of cool. It was a beautiful story.
That's cool.
Yeah. Okay, so then I have one last. So if I don't think that this part of me was thinking like, you could do an American remake of this that would do great in America. Like I could see a story like this working, but it also doesn't work because like the fact that it is so geographically tied to Manchuria and the history of Korea and all of that, like they'd have to find a new way to make that part of the story translate over. But as far as like the comedy intertwined with the Western and the action and stuff, I was like, something like that could do well in the States. But so what I was trying to think of, and I would love to get your thoughts, is how would you cast this? If you were to make an American remake using American-ish actors, or actors that would be more recognizable even. Although, I mean, all of these actors, I feel like, at least the weird, and then even Hassani was like, oh, I know the bad guy from G.I. Joe, and what was the other? I don't know where the message is now. Yeah. Any thoughts? Who would you be interested in for any of these roles?
Well, you know, since we're talking about the Bechdel test, like if they did a remake, it'd be cool if all the main characters were women. Yeah. And like, for some reason, I'm thinking like for the bad guy, Charlize Theron might be really cool.
She was on my list, but I was like,
really?
So I was thinking like, wait, where is my list? I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget.
Nice.
The idea, like, I love the idea of Michael B. Jordan with Charlize Theron. Maybe Steve Yeun could be somewhere factored. Like, he would be able to duke it out with one of them to try to get one of those parts. But I would love to see either Melissa McCarthy or potentially even Seth Rogen as the weird. Like, I just feel like Seth Rogen, I think, just has such a natural knack for it. But I think Melissa McCarthy has like I think she's a more skilled actor. I think even Seth Rogen would agree with that he's I'm not really an actor. I just say the line and I am myself, you know, like he's that kind of actor that's like, I am going to be honest and present and say the words truthfully. Whereas I think Melissa McCarthy brings a certain amount of like craft to it that he brings to it.
Right.
Yeah. So I was like, I would pay really good money to watch her do a lot of the scenes that he does in this movie.
That's I think she would be a great casting choice. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
But yeah, this guy's so evil.
We never really found out where the scar on his face came from.
Oh yeah.
I sort of wondered if it was like an implied thing, because it seemed like the good guy and the bad guy, like I didn't figure out how the weird really was as interconnected until the end with the reveal.
Right.
Which I won't spoil just yet for anyone who hasn't seen it. But it's like in my head, because I made this story up that he has the scar on his face, and then the good guy has a single hole in his hat right here. And so I was like, somehow they were in some sort of duel, and he got shot in the hat, and then he got cut in the face. Like that, it was like I made up this story, and I kept waiting for an explanation, at least for the scar, and it never came. And I was like, maybe that was just one of those like, the actor made his own homework and was like, hey, I think this is a thing that happened to me. And I need, you know.
Huh.
That knife is so dull, it's messed up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was kind of painful to watch, just like sawing away and not getting anywhere. I was like, oh, can this scene just be over? I'm ready. Oh, I don't have a high tolerance for that kind of like gory stuff.
Yeah. I feel like, you know, it's interesting in Korea. Traditionally, like swords were kind of frowned upon in a way, because like there was like there's like this thing about like, you know, like knives are great for cutting food and all that, and like using as a tool, but like as a weapon, it's kind of you know, it's gory. It's like a violent thing to be stabbed and cut. So like there wasn't as much of this like glorification of like swordplay as much as Japan is known for with the samurai legacy. So yeah, it's kind of but then like nowadays, like I guess because of the influence of, you know, Western culture and all that, like movies like this like show more of that kind of stuff. But you know, especially growing up, like I don't remember a lot of movies like where there was like sword fighting or anything like that. Like in Korea.
I bet probably some of the like the rating scale has changed too, where like there are old movies where they're like, oh, we had to cut a scene that featured this because it would have made it rated R. And you're like, oh, I feel like we see so much worse now.
Oh,
like maybe they used to actually take violence on screen and recognize like, oh, that's probably not great for small children to see. And now they're like, that's fine, but you can't say the F word. Like, you can kill 1,000 people, but you can't say the F word.
Yeah.
Hassani said, I Saw the Devil is the other movie that he knew the bad guy from.
I haven't seen that. Oh.
I don't know that one. Nikki, yeah, you missed out on a finger being chopped off. Post spoiler.
Oh, this whole scene too, this sequence I love. Like it reminds me so much of anime, especially in a second when they're like running across the rooftops and everything. Like, or even here, like he's swinging across the roofs and yeah, like God, the amount of just rehearsal and planning that must have taken.
And I read the actor who plays the good guy is he broke his arm during the making of this film.
Oh.
So I was like, would it have been then? Like, it's not like, you know, his arm's just going to break from being up, but maybe like ran into. I mean, this is a pretty physical scene, even if he is just zooming across. But yeah, that stance, like it had like, and he probably had like a harness on his back, and then he's just holding his arm, you know. But the physical way that his body is positioned doesn't look like he's actually hanging from his arm like this. It looks like he's like Peter Panning, like just like zooming across, like. Da, 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 da. But it's like it's perfect. It's perfect for this movie. Like it just heightens like the campiness of it, while still having like authentic, really good action to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's the thing I think that would be difficult to balance is like, how do you make it goofy and campy and bizarre and just fun, but also really impressive as far as like, oh, that's some insane stunt work, and the kind of planning that went into the scene is nuts.
Yeah. By the way, I think the campiness helps in large part because of the facial expressions on these actors. Is there like just now when he was fighting that dude, his face just cracks me up.
His face the whole film, like later when he's like pretending that he's asleep and the other guy's talking, that his face like it starts like this and then he's like this and then he's like it's like he's like squishing his face more and more closed, like he's I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Like, oh my gosh.
Oh man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I would like for him to just be a household name in the US and just be
Oh
in all of
man.
the things.
He's so good. There's I highly recommend to people watching right now, check out a movie that he's in called The Host. It's actually done by the director who did Parasite.
Oh,
But
nice.
it's like a monster movie basically about how like, so there's a central river that goes through Seoul, the capital, and it's this like very very wide river, and unfortunately it's very dirty. It gets polluted constantly, and so the movie is about like what happens when this like little aquatic creature mutates because of all the pollution, and it turns into this giant monster that just comes out of the river and starts eating people. And he's in this movie, he's in that movie, and he's so good because he plays this like I don't know what his deal is. Like there's something mentally wrong with him, his character in that movie. And so but it's not played, that part is actually not played for laughs. Like it's kind of a serious thing that he's like, he doesn't quite get like what's happening around him sometimes. But
Yeah.
then like he has this whole like arc about he has a daughter, and then the daughter gets taken by the monster, and so they have to go save her. And it's like, I don't know, the way that he plays that character is so good. It's not campy. It's like it's comedic, but it's a serious comedy kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, it's just amazing. I love that movie. By
Okay,
the way,
so his name is Song Kang-ho, right? Am I saying it all right?
Song, his last name would be Song.
Song.
Yeah.
Song. Okay. What is
And then Kang.
what is the naming? Wait, okay, hang on.
Okay.
Tell me how to say it first, and then I'll ask the next question. Song
Okay. Song Kang-ho.
Song Kang-ho.
Uh-huh.
Song Kang-ho. Okay. So then Song is the first name or the last name?
It's the last name. Yeah. So Korean names you always say the last name first and then the first name.
Okay. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Because that's even when I was reading with this film, like it would be like the name and then the two hyphenated names, but then later it would just list the two hyphenated names. And I was like, wait, which one? Like, and I didn't have the reference like next to it to be like, oh, and Marquardt, where I was like, are they referencing first name or last name? Okay.
Right. Yeah. So they'll it's usually
his name
when
is Kang-ho.
Kang-ho. Yeah.
If I was like if I had him on this show, I would call him Kang-ho.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
The things that we all need to learn.
Right. I'll give you another little bit of Korean trivia is like when you're born, like the moment that you're born, you're actually considered 1 year old because you've been in your mother's womb for almost a year. So every Korean, when they give their age, it's actually 1 year higher than what their age would be in Western society.
Yeah. Huh.
So yeah, just FYI.
That is fascinating. I like that.
It makes sense. I mean, yeah, you were developing as a being for a while before you're born.
Well, and in some ways it feels like it like things would make more sense because if it happened the first year that I was alive, I was 0. So it's like the first time that I had a Christmas was, like that. It's like, oh, when I was 1, I had my first Christmas. Like, no, when you were 1, you had your second Christmas.
Yeah.
I don't
So they should be giving you 2 sets of presents, basically.
Yeah, I'm fine with that. Whatever gets that done.
Yeah, I'm fine with that too.
My parents split up when I was like 5, and I think I was too young to fully understand it. And they were like, "Well, you'll have a Christmas at this house, and then you'll have a Christmas at this house." And I was like, "I'm in." Like I was like, "Okay, that sounds great." What a child. Yeah. More presents? Yes. Please get divorced immediately.
Exactly.
Fortunately, they were much happier divorced, and they have always worked very well together to co-parent. So.
Oh, nice.
It's a happy ending.
Good.
Okay. So there was a shot a couple of minutes ago where there's like a sniper who's got his little telescope thing. Yeah. And then the good guy sees the reflection off of the scope and then aims at that and shoots, and it goes through it. And supposedly that was an actual shot that somebody made during the Vietnam War that was like inspired that shot in this film. I was like, interesting.
Wow.
Just,
speaking of the Vietnam War, yeah. Korea actually was involved in the Vietnam War too. Since they were allies of the U.S., they sent, tens of thousands of troops to Vietnam. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Oh, that's my world history needs major work. I feel like growing up in Texas, like, because you learn Texas history in Texas. Like, I don't feel like did other people have entire history classes based on just your state, or did you just have U.S. history and world history? Because I definitely remember having Texas history classes.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the Alamo, Hassani says. Which actually, that show I was talking about, Undone, even talks about the Alamo and how like the people's understanding of the Alamo is completely wrong, and it's actually not necessarily a thing that, like, if we really dove into the actual facts of what happened, that we would be like, ooh, maybe let's put that into the version of history where we're like, we don't have to talk about that.
Yeah, I mean, well, the part of it is the defenders of the Alamo. Yeah, it was a very brave stand that they took, and they fought well, but they're slave owners too. I mean, the Mexican, what was it at the time? I don't think it was the Mexican Empire. It was like, I forget, but whatever their government was, they had outlawed slavery at that point. So,
yeah.
So it's like, yeah. I mean, who's in the right there?
It wasn't, we're proud to be Americans and we'll defend America. It was, we will defend slavery because we've built our entire financial institutions on it and we don't know how to function without it. So we're just going to forget about that whole part where we're, keeping humans as property.
Yep. Well, I'm going to, I had gotten some food that was
yes.
Asian themed.
Okay,
So I'm gonna.
Yeah, we can play our game. Okay, so I have 6 snack foods.
Oh,
so we
wow.
can do 2 rounds. I'm not going to eat all of them. But we can do 2 rounds of the good, the bad, the weird foods.
Okay.
And I'm gonna show you 3 at a time. And of the 3 I show you, you have to decide which one is going to be the good one, which one's the bad one, which one's the weird one.
Okay.
So these all came from my local Asian market. They're not all Korean. I don't know that any of them are Korean, actually. I just kind of was like, that looks cool, and put it in the shopping cart. Okay, so we'll put these 3 together. So we have baked shrimp chips, classic.
No way.
Okay, and then we have, and this is hardly authentic Asian, but it's like, it's an Asian take on an American thing. We have Cheetos, but they're rasa jagung bakar. It's roasted corn flavor.
Huh.
And then the third one I'll pair up with that. We've got some salted egg potato chips, which there's not even any Asian characters on this, but it says that it's made in Singapore. So of these 3, which one will be the bad one? Which one will be the good one? And which one will be the weird one, do you think?
I think, well, for me, the good one is going to be shrimp chips. Like, that is a staple from my childhood.
Okay.
Yeah. Should I guess the other ones right now too, or?
Yeah. Okay, so which one would you say will be bad and which one will be weird?
That's a tough one. I think for the weird, I'm going to go with the Cheetos just because it's Cheetos, but then it's this other flavor. So I'm going to go with weird. And then, bad salted egg potato chips.
What? Okay, can I tell you, I really hope that these are not bad, because I had read about some salted egg flavored things online. Like, I'd been seeing recipes pop up and I was like, oh, that sounds like a thing I would love, because to me, nothing is better than like a hot, runny egg yolk just on top of something else savory. Like, just throw a bunch of frozen vegetables in a skillet and then put an egg on it. And I'm like a happy camper. And so I was like, I was in the checkout line and I just saw these on display and I was like, oh, sure, why not? And I grabbed it. I threw it in the basket. I got home. I looked at the receipt. This bag, which is 3.7 ounces, was $9.
Wow.
I was like, what? So now I'm just not going to open these for a long time. Okay, Hassani is very jealous for these roasted corn Cheetos. So I think
nice.
I think for Hassani's birthday, I'm going to open these and have these as my stack. But I have one more round of good, bad, and weird.
Ooh, okay.
So first, we'll do this one first. So first we have, this is Chinese pecan flavored sunflower seeds, roasted sunflower seeds.
Oh.
That's a better view. Okay. And then we have, and I'm probably going to eat this one also. This is a chan pui mui. It's a Chinese dessert thing. It's some sort of plum, like a dried plum with some other flavors added to it. And then we have, and there's not a lot of description on this, tofu snack. Barbecue sauce flavor, not barbecue flavor, barbecue sauce flavor. Okay, so round 2 of good, bad, and weird. Which is which?
Okay, I'm gonna say for the good, it'll be the sunflower seeds. The
Okay.
bad will be the plum candy, and the weird will be the tofu snack.
I definitely think this one's gonna be the weird.
Yeah.
Okay, these are delightful. Okay, so so now you share with me what you've got there, and then I'll get these open, and we'll sort of talk people through what we're experiencing with these foods.
All right.
I'm very excited about this.
So I've got Hello Panda.
Oh yes, classic. What is it? A specific flavor? Chocolate?
Just a chocolate one.
Cool.
And then I've got the Sina ginger candy.
Oh, is that like a hard ginger or a soft?
It's a hard candy.
Okay.
And then I'm going to explain why this is Asian in a second, but my last one is Spam.
Spam, made in Austin, Minnesota. Did you know? Okay.
I did not know that. But so I consider this Asian because Spam is hugely popular in various parts of Asia and in Korea especially. And like when I would go to supermarkets in Korea when I was a kid, they didn't just have this, they had like 5 other varieties of Spam. Like the company that makes this makes like Spam that you don't get in the US, like they're just for Asian markets.
Like
the
different flavors.
like exactly.
There's another Kit Kats. They're Kit Kats in like an exponential number of flavors that you just can't really get in the US. I'm like, why? Why do we only get the one or the 2? Okay, wait. Okay, so hold up all 3. I'm going to decide what I think will be the good, the bad, and the weird. And then you tell me if you agree or you disagree, since you actually know all of those. Oh man, I mean, I would eat all of those and enjoy them. All right, I'm going to say the good. Yeah, I'm going to go with what I think would be the most popular vote, which would be the good is the Hello Panda. Okay. The bad, I mean, I love ginger, but I'll say the ginger just so that I can let Spam be the weird. But I've also had Spam, and I know it's delightful. They all get the good in my book.
Oh, okay. Right on.
That's how I roll. Okay. All right, Hassan, I'm going to talk you through these roasted corn flavors. So we're going to open it up. Let me get a nice little whiff here and see see if I can get it right as it opens. Nope, they're going to just pop out all over my face. This is not working.
Oh my God. Yeah.
They're intense. Okay. Oh, that's interesting. It's like, it's not a flavor I expected. It doesn't smell like Cheetos. It kind of, it looks like Cheetos. It looks, it's a Cheeto. I don't know how to describe. It's definitely a strong corn flavor. Okay. This tastes like dessert.
Really?
It's really sweet. It gets a little more savory as it goes along, but like the beginning is like this feels like cake, like a Cheeto, a cake flavored Cheeto, corn cake flavored Cheeto. That's what I'm calling it.
That's amazing.
I mean, it's good. It's not the savory snack I expected. It feels more like a dessert treat.
I also got another snack that is probably universally agreed to be good. And I couldn't resist not getting it because I haven't had these in a while. But binche.
What is it? I'm not familiar with that.
It's basically just biscuits covered with chocolate. But
Can't go wrong with that.
Yeah, so delicious. So, all right. I also ended up while I was at this particular Asian market. They had like a little what do you call it? Like a little restaurant in there. So I got just actually like regular food. This is Mapo Tofu. So it's tofu that's seasoned And if you've never had Mapo Tofu, I highly recommend it. It's good. Like people
How do
think
you spell that?
Mapo and then tofu, Tofu. And I'll say this, like a lot of people I know who aren't Asian, they're like, tofu's gross. Like, why would you eat tofu? The thing is, people who like eat tofu, like from like, I don't know, Wheatsville Co-op or whatever, like they're not getting like Asian style tofu. Like tofu is a great food because it absorbs flavors. So if you make it with like spices and like a nice little like brothy kind of thing, like it's so good. So
nice.
Anyway, yeah.
Nikki says, a cake flavored Cheeto. Where do I sign up? Sign up at the local
Nice.
Asian grocery store if they have this. Cookies. Wait. Okay. Favorite Korean snack are these chocolate cookie cakes called Oh Yes. Do you know? Are you familiar?
I am familiar. Those are good.
I mean, it sounds delightful. I got a tofu press recently because that was like when I do cook tofu. I'm an impatient cook. Like I don't want something that's going to take a long time. Like I want it to be. So I end up undercooking the tofu, so it's not crispy, and I didn't have the press, so it's still too juicy. It doesn't have time to absorb the flavor. So it's like, I would put tofu and stuff because it was like, great, there's a little extra protein.
You need to get yourself an old Korean lady to make you tofu every day.
I wanted it to just be, you need to just get yourself an old Korean lady, period. Come on, you're my old Korean lady now.
There you go.
I'd like crispy, delicious flavored tofu, please. And some cake Cheetos. Oh, man. Good. We're coming up to I made a note and I said, rodeo clowns, ? Which is in the next scene. There are a couple of guys, they're about to, by the way, this guy with the purple jacket is also ridiculously funny.
Oh, yeah.
Outside that door and he's knocking and he's like trying to be sneaky and pretend like it's not him. And then the guy inside says, who is it? And then he just blurts out his own name and then he's like, oh. That's so great.
Oh, man.
These guys, this to me just screamed like rodeo clowns. I don't know why. Just for like one little moment, I was like, oh, what? And here they are thinking that they're going to find all of the treasure. And I love that they look over the view and they're like, yes, yes. And it takes them like 30 seconds to be like, wait a minute. Why is that the ocean? Everybody wants snacks now. I think we need to just incorporate that. That's just going to be a regular part of this is everybody bring your snacks. And around the 1 hour mark, we're all just going to have a snack.
I assumed this was part of the show.
I wanted it to be, and I brought a snack at one point, but then my guest didn't have, I didn't plan for it as like a bring your own snack also. And then I was like, wait a minute, if this is also going to be a podcast, is it going to be weird if I'm like,
That's a good point.
Why
not? Yeah.
Oh man.
I love in this movie too. I love the that there's a lot of handheld shots, and especially in some of the action sequences, the way that they use it, it feels very like almost you're there. Like it pulls you into the story, I feel like.
Yeah.
But then they contrast it with some of these like really badass wide angle, like just check out this landscape kind of shot.
Okay. Nikki approves of the snacking on screen and in the audio. Excellent.
Nice.
Let me see. Was there any other fun trivia that I found specifically about this movie? It was included in a book of the 1001 movies you must see before you die. And supposedly the total body count in this film is 69 bodies, which I was like, I feel like either that was like a very like that they were like, haha, we're going to make it be 69 people that die. Or the person who counted was like, I'm just going to stop at 69 and then just posted that thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you ever have any movie quotes that like pop in your head on a regular basis? Have you ever noticed that?
The other
Hassani cheered 69 bits. Thank you.
we're a very mature group here.
Yeah. Always.
Yeah. No, it's so funny you asked me that because yesterday, was it yesterday? Is it yesterday or the day before? Random. I'm like nothing. I was doing nothing related to this show at all. I think I was like cleaning the kitchen or something, but I thought about this quote from The Simpsons. It's when it's like third or fourth season Simpsons where Superintendent Chalmers, it comes to the elementary school and Principal Skinner's all nervous and, you know, whatever, trying to like impress him. And there's this one moment where Ralph Wiggum calls him Super Nintendo Chalmers. And like, I don't know why that's funny to me, but I just started cracking up just by myself in this house. And like, I was laughing about it like periodically for the rest of the day. So yeah, there you go. My movie quote that just randomly popped in my head.
Nice. That's amazing.
What about you? What's a quote that's randomly come up for you?
See, I set myself up in the worst way possible. Mine is disgusting. We're going to just continue with this completely immature theme. So in the movie, What Women Want, once Mel, what's his name? Not Mel Brooks. Really?
Mel Gibson.
Thank you. Like, you know, the guy, the fun trivia in What Women Want is he's shorter than Helen Hunt and was like, absolutely not. So they had to like dig out channels in the ground for her to walk through so that he would be higher than her.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it's wild. I had a friend who wasn't an actor at all, but she was an extra in that film for some reason. She was like, yeah, I don't know. I just ran by in the background. I was like, you're not even a runner. How did you? Anyway. What were you going to say?
I don't understand like why. I mean, okay. Would the average moviegoer see? I mean, first of all, Mel Gibson's problematic, but before we knew all those things about Mel Gibson, would they see that movie? And if they hadn't dug out those channels and they saw that Helen Hunt was taller than him, would they just like walk away from the movie? You know, like I don't know why that's such a big deal that they have to have certain actors like look like they're taller.
I don't know. Weird. It's that like very like heteronormative. Who's the superior? That it's like the taller person is going to be the dominant person, and a man should always be the dominant one in the relationship. Over, you know, it's like who fucking cares?
Yeah.
Anyway, but that movie, I love Helen Hunt. Like I love what she's been. I think very highly of her. And so I saw that movie because probably I fell in love with her in like Twister. And I'm sure that was after Twister. But after he starts to hear women, he's like, I'm losing my mind. And then he goes outside and he's running around the park and he can hear all of these different women. And then there's just this like one quick shot that cuts to a French poodle jumping up on its hind legs towards the person who's walking it. And it just goes, Monsieur, I need to poop. And like, and it was just like so funny and specific to me. And I think for most of my life, at least 2 or 3 times a week, when I'm like, oh, need to go to the bathroom, in my head, I hear, Monsieur, I need to poop. It's like, oh my God. It's obnoxious. It's just so ridiculous.
Oh man.
Tell Frank, my friend has this great Super Nintendo Chalmers SNES shirt. That's amazing.
That is awesome. I want that now.
I have one of my pajama shirts it's actually I have one right here. This Nintendo controller, and it just says I'm classically trained underneath it. And I bought it because I was like obsessed with Tetris when I was younger, and that I was classically trained in oboe, and I was like, it has multiple meanings.
Oh man, it's funny to see controllers like that because like they're so different now, and they have so many more buttons.
Yeah,
man.
Oh, okay. This scene with this very creative way of killing off the bad guys. I just found myself thinking like, this just like screams teenage boy, like that a teenage boy was just like, yes, this is how we'll kill him.
Yeah.
But then I like the reaction later too when people discover the bodies and they're like, what kind of sacrificial sacrifice, whatever. I don't know. Words are hard when you're thinking about cake Cheetos. Oh man.
I need to find those cake Cheetos now. Oh, speaking of weird desserts, recently I saw that Oreos made a Lady Gaga themed Oreo for like a limited time, and it doesn't. Yeah. Oh man, you guys should go on Amazon and look this up. Because it tastes different too. It's not like flavored like a regular Oreo is. So yeah, I actually ended up buying a pack and eating some. They're surprisingly good.
What's the flavor?
I don't know.
Oreo,
it's like
but
it's more. To me, it's more sweet, and it tastes a little bit like I would say kind of. I don't know what's almost a little fruity, not like a lot, but just a little more fruity.
Okay, let's see. Inspired by her album Chromatica, pink colored Oreo golden sandwich cookie is filled with green cream. It doesn't really say anything about the flavor. Huh. I mean, I will be completely honest. Every time Oreo comes out with a new flavor, I'm like, yep, guess I'm going to have to buy it.
Uh-huh.
The caramel apple was a surprising hit for me. I really like it was really good. I didn't expect that. Oh, here's the shot where they're just like, maybe perhaps the murderer is a pervert. So this is where now we see the Japanese army is starting to close in on this whole ordeal because they want in on this map. And we still don't even know what the map leads to exactly.
Yeah. I love that they have this whole thing about the ghost market too. Like some, crazy underground market out in the desert.
Yeah. Nikki, you and Hassani are welcome to unleash all of the dirty jokes you want. It's okay. Hassani's a moderator, so he won't ban himself and he won't ban you. You'll be fine. I like on Twitch sometimes if people drop certain things in the comments, it'll get flagged and it won't allow it to post. And then the moderator has to say, no, actually, this is fine. So it's really funny because every once in a while I switch to the moderator view and I see what he's had to approve. Like gay ass. Like, that's a gay ass looking cake. I don't know why it would be a cake, but it makes me laugh. I'm like, oh, I remember that. I remember why that was relevant, and it was funny. Oh, the dirty jokes of Lady Gaga as an Oreo. I don't have any dirty jokes for her as an Oreo.
Huh. Yeah.
Bring it on, Nikki. Okay. So we're starting to get into our last big action sequence, or at least the mega cast sequence. And I think there's actually 2 shots in here that were probably cut out in the UK version. And then there was 1 shot that we passed much earlier in the movie of horses falling that were probably deemed not cool. So what kind of films do you write? What kind of stories do you like to tell? What's like, are there central themes or things, or is it just like every story is totally different and you just take whatever comes to you and roll with it?
I guess, I mean, as far as like a common theme, I love stories about people who are, kind of on the outskirts in one form or fashion. So like I wrote a horror, I write with this guy named Vinny, and we wrote a horror screenplay once that was like this guy who is a undercover officer, but he's got all these like elements to his character that made him kind of like an outsider. So I love like, things like that. I guess probably because I felt like that outsider often growing up and, as the only Asian kid in school. But then, like in terms of like genres, I love sci-fi, fantasy, horror. I love just like, action stuff, clearly. So
like this.
Yeah.
So this movie ticks a lot of boxes for you. Checks a lot of boxes.
Definitely.
I don't know what the expression is now.
Yeah, it blows up a lot of boxes, is what it does.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I was growing up, funny, like going back to what we were talking about earlier about like Koreans and like whether how they would censor movies and stuff. I think at least in my family, my parents were very kind of lenient about letting us see violent movies, and my theory about that is mainly because my grandfather, who lived with us for a long time, he fought in the Korean War. He fought against it. He actually was kind of like, he lived through the Japanese occupation also. So he had to he got shot by a Japanese officer when he was a kid and stuff like that. Like he had to deal with a lot of crap. And so my dad, when he was growing up, it was like he didn't actually serve in Vietnam, but he conscripted in the army, and he would have to like go and like serve on military bases and stuff. So anyway, I feel like they were kind of like used to violence to a certain degree. And so for whatever reason, whether this is a good way to raise kids or not, they let me and my brother watch violent movies all the time. So Westerns were a thing. Growing up in Texas, there would always be Westerns on TV. And so, I grew up loving Westerns. And so it's something like this movie that combines Westerns plus like just the Korean element to it. It definitely does tick off all of those boxes.
It's awesome. And it's funny because I'm not big on Westerns generally, because my experience with them tends to be a lot more of that like very slow pace, that it's like, ooh, close up on one person's eyes, and then you see the eyebrow wiggle up and down, and then close up on the other, and it's like, to me, I'm just like, I can't, like, my brain goes too fast to be able to just like sit in that moment for so long. Like, even in this, it still has that close up on the eyes, close up, but it's like eyes, that it's like, ooh, who are we? Like it's like enough input for me to like stay engaged and focused.
Yeah. Well, so you mentioned you write other stories where there are lots of conflict. Like what kind of stories are they?
I just like, for me personally, so like I grew up in Texas. I think I graduated college in 2006. So I think I'm like 3 years younger than you ish. I'll be 37 in May. So
I'm actually 43. I started college a little bit later. I didn't go like, right away out of high school. Yeah.
Well, we were, like circa the same time period growing up in Texas. And I was like a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white girl, so I obviously didn't have the same, like, I wasn't ostracized at school because of the way I looked, but I felt different. Like, it just felt like there's something about me, and I don't know what it is, and I need to just be quiet and keep it to myself because I don't want other people to figure out, and then I will be left out. So I just left myself out, which is like, oh, that's weird. But I just, like, I think in a lot of ways, I wish I had been like a rebellious, badass teen that was like, yeah, screw your rules. I'm going to go do whatever I want. Because then I probably would have figured out the gay thing much sooner. But I was the head drum major, and I was like the role model, and I tutored my younger neighbors. And like, it was like, if you had kids in high school, you wanted them to be friends with me because I was a great influence. And I just had no interest in partying or drinking or any of that stuff. And so it just, to me, like the idea of being a lesbian just felt so different from that it was like, you can't be gay and also just be like a friendly, nice gal next door type of person. Like they felt very separate from each other. So I didn't come out fully publicly until I was like 29. So, that feeling of being othered is definitely a big theme for me. And it's something that's important to me. But then a little over 3 years ago, my sister died. She had kidney cancer. I lived with her for the last 6 months of her life. And I was like really here with my family while all of that was happening. And so like grief suddenly was this whole new world for me that I was like, what is, like, why don't we talk about this stuff more? Why don't we talk about what it looks like when a person dies? Because we're probably all going to see that at some point or another. And when you don't have any information going into that, it's terrifying. And then you talk to people later, I joined a support group and we were like, oh, when my person died right in front of me, this is what happened. And to be like, oh, that happened with me too. Oh, this is normal. That's just what happens. It's like, why don't we talk about that stuff more? So I think grief will definitely be a big theme in the stuff that I make. I have a concept for a television series. When we found out that my sister had terminal cancer, I was touring the country in a children's show, a non-union traveling thing, so it's like me at 32 and I'm this like introverted lesbian who likes alone time. And I'm surrounded by like 20 something actors, 24 hours a day. And my character was the host of the show. Like I worked at the theater. So I was on stage constantly like, hey, everybody, welcome to the show. Turn off your phones and do this and that. Oh, look, it's our guest speaker who's telling you what's happening. And oh man, everything's going to be great. And then these villains break in and ruin the whole show. And I'm like, don't worry, everybody, everything's going to be fine. So I had to just be this like when I am typecast, I am the like high energy, super positive character. But I had to do that like times 1,000 for this role. And like, it was halfway through the tour that we found out my sister was terminal. And literally like my mom called me. I was in Hershey, Pennsylvania. We had the talk that night. And like 14 or 16 hours later, I had to do 2 shows back to back. And it was just like, holy shit. So it was like show days. It was just wake up and do anything I can to stay happy and optimistic, get through the shows. And then as soon as the shows were over, it was like, and now I just cry in the back of a van all the time, and it was just such a weird story. But so I love the idea of turning that into a series of some kind, because also like, I've never seen a series that's just like constantly on the move, that it's like, oh, this episode we're in Tennessee. And then the next episode we're in South Carolina. And then meanwhile, all this is happening. And like the drama that she's tied to is back in Texas or wherever, Right. So I don't know what the story is beyond that, but definitely, something around that.
Yeah. There's a screenwriting competition called Script to Comic. And what they do is what they do is they'll take, your pilot episode, or if you write a feature, your feature script, and if you win the contest, if you get like in the top, I think it's like 4 or 5 places, it gets worked on as a comic book adaptation. And
interesting.
Yeah. And then if that comic book does well enough, they can use that as part of a pitch package to approach studios and be like, hey, look how well the comic did. Let's turn this into a series. Because that's like what happened with The Walking Dead, basically.
Really?
Yeah. So, The Walking Dead didn't go through this screenplay competition, but yeah, like that's how this competition came about, because people started realizing like, hey, we can develop writers who have a really good vision for something into a comic book, build that audience that way, and then turn around and then approach studios.
That's really cool.
So yeah, if whenever you write your script, like that may be an avenue to consider.
Yeah. No, I'll look into that. It's weird because even just the times that I've tried to write about grief, where I've thought like, oh, it's been 3 years, I can start to write something. And then I write it and then I go back to edit and I just completely rewrite it. And then I completely rewrite it again. And I'm like, this was just supposed to be an essay that I would post within a week of starting. Like this was not supposed to be some, and then it's like, oh, right. It's still just, I haven't started writing about it that much yet. So I'm still trying to find like, what's my entrance into this? Like I'm big on the idea of trying to do a lot of just like essays as source material, that it's like, great, let me just write my own honest experience that I can then look back at and say, ooh, this little thing would make a really great scene. Let me work that into this. Do you know the movie Other People?
No.
It's Chris Kelly. He was a head writer on Saturday Night Live. It stars Molly Shannon. But it's based on his actual story. His mother died of cancer and he went back and was living with her. And it was just like his experience of that. But it was really interesting because he kept, around the year that she died, he would journal every single day. and it was 365 reasons I love my mother. And sometimes it was just 3 sentences, and other times it was a longer post. But it was fascinating because I went back and I read that entire blog series, and you can see like exactly where that movie came from. That it's like, oh, he pulled stuff straight out of this and adapted it into a scene and went with it, because he came from sketch comedy. So he was like, I don't know how to write a movie, but I know how to write scenes. So I'll just start writing scenes and figure out how to tie them together.
Yeah. I mean, for a feature film, that's essentially what you need to do, is you have to have enough ideas to fill out anywhere from about 60 to 80 scenes. And if you can do that, you've got a feature film.
Nice. Oh. What is the process like in Austin to make a short film? Like, if I wanted to make my pin setter film into an actual film, like, I mean, not looking for like, how do I do that? How do you make a budget? But just what does that process look like in Austin?
There's so many different ways I've seen people go about it. Like one guy I knew, he had decent credit, so he just applied for a bunch of credit cards and then maxed them out making his short film. And then he was in debt because the short film didn't make any money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do short films make money? Like, I feel like there's not a lot of outlets for them to make money besides like maybe you win at a film festival and that gets a prize, but like.
Right. But that's the long game, because even if it wins at a film festival, like, they're not going to pay you for that short film. It's just you now might get an agent or a manager out of that. Yeah. Or if you're lucky, a studio will be like, hey, we want to develop your short film into something longer. But it's not going to pay right away by any means.
I met a filmmaker this weekend. I was part of a mentorship event that had 4 directors that came together and did like breakout rooms with 8 people at a time, just answering questions, talking about filmmaking. And Lindsay Mackey made a short film called Clear Blue that did well at a bunch of film festivals. And a producer came to her and was like, hey, I want to adapt that into a feature-length screenplay. And she was like, yes, I will let you do that, but only if you will also make this other feature screenplay that I've already been trying to work on. And I was like, that's such a ballsy, bold move. Like, I feel like most people straight out of college would have been like, yes, please, I'll do whatever you want for money.
Right.
Like, you'll pay me to make films. I want it, you know. I was like, that's amazing.
That is amazing.
I thought that was really impressive. Yeah, it's tricky because I think like the short film really is kind of your calling card, and it's how you get better jobs. It's how you get, it's how you get any job, particularly if you want to be a director, you know, but it's just so hard. Like, that's part I had to just tell myself when I was writing this short film. I was like, don't write this to be able to make it, or else I'll just write like, okay, great, there's only 3 characters in the film because I can't pay more. And it was like, no, just write anything. Just let it be the script that you want the script to be. Don't worry about making it. But now I've made it a script and I'm excited about it. And now I'm like, well, now I want to make it. But there's like so many things where I'm like, I feel like this would end up costing an insane amount.
I mean, that's the problem. Yeah. Like, if you don't have a budget, or if you don't know enough people that can contribute to your movie, like, how do you do it? It is a perennial catch-22 that we deal with here.
Well, tell me about some of your projects. Things that either you've written that you're excited about, or things that you've actually been able to get produced and made.
Well, I got a short film made a couple years ago called The Obliviousness of Christine. And I didn't actually write that one. It was a friend of mine named Pixie, and she wrote this really funny, it's like a horror comedy kind of thing. Nice. So I directed it, and that was just like, we're using my house and my friend's apartment, and like shooting it in both locations in different lighting and from different angles to make it look like, completely different locations, even when it's the same house or the same apartment. And I basically fed everyone just out of pocket. I would just go to like a Mediterranean restaurant nearby and just get food for everyone. It was just like, we just used whatever we had on hand. Like, we had no formal budget. But it got done, and I'm actually going to be screening it at the Alamo Draft House at Lakeline on April 10th. I would invite people, except that all the tickets are sold out. So
I was about to look like, what am I doing on April 10th?
But yeah, that all came about too because I had no plans on showing it at all. But I on Facebook I met this guy who he shot his own horror short film recent, I guess, like over the pandemic, and he's trying to do a fundraiser to get it promoted. And one of the ways that it did this is that on the Indiegogo page, if he invited other filmmakers that have shorts that are horror themed to basically buy in at $100, and if you do that, you can show your short along with his at the Draft House.
Nice. Yeah.
So that's what I did.
Awesome. Well, and then if it also sells out, then do you make back any of that money, or is it like?
Oh no!
How does that work? Okay.
Yeah,
I was like,
wish.
cool, but I feel like if it's a one-off, they're probably not like, oh yeah, here's your like. They're a big enough operation that there's probably way more costs involved than just like. Right. I'm thinking like black box theaters where you do an improv show where they're like, okay, if you don't sell this many tickets, you have to pay us this much money. But if you sell enough tickets, then you actually just make money off of it. But it's, because they're like, we got to get people in the door. For them, it's more about selling alcohol, right? You're a comedy theater. And you're like, great. Most of our money comes from classes, then from booze at shows, then from the actual tickets at shows.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so crazy, like how, like, because of the way that things are set up now, like ticket sales are always like at the bottom.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. But yeah, so that's the, and then right now I'm actually, I won second place at the script to comic competition last year. So I'm working with those guys right now, which is why I even know about this at all. But
that's awesome.
So yeah, I'm trying to develop a screenplay for a series into a comic book, and then once it becomes a comic book, the idea is we're going to try to pitch it to studios like Netflix, Hulu, so forth.
Nice, yeah,
so, yeah,
that's amazing. Okay, this one specific shot that just made me so happy that the weird guy does is coming up in like 30 seconds, and it's his binoculars. Just the way that he opens them. I don't know why, but I laughed so hard and so loud that I was like, I feel like my neighbors are probably confused about what's happening. Okay, so give it like 10 more seconds. And then he hears something. Yeah, okay. And then he's like, what's going on? And then it's pull it to the face, then open. And I don't know why that's so funny to me. That he wouldn't because it's like, you can't see anything when it's like this. Why is it already at your face if it's not open? Like you open it while you're pulling it. It's funny that he would be like, all right, it's in position and now open. I don't know why that made me so it's a good gesture.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love the idea. So part of the reason that I wanted to be in Austin is I love the idea of trying to do I read an article that was like, your movie is not no budget. That they're like, that's not a thing. When you're making a budget, you need to factor in how much should I have paid my DP who was willing to work for free because they're my friend? How much should I have paid for food that I didn't have to pay because my mom was willing to just provide sandwiches for people? That it's that's the budget. Be realistic about what it should have cost. And then if you can get away with not spending any money, then great, well done. But don't think that's a no budget film. But anyway, the idea of making projects that are almost no budget. There's a movie called, I think it's on, I'm going to look it up. It's called Suicide Kale. Suicide Kale. And it is on, what is the pink title. Star? Oh, iTunes? What? It was somewhere that you could watch it with a subscription, but now it looks like maybe it's not. I don't know. But it was written by Brittany Nichols, who is also in it. And the whole thing is pretty much improvised. And it's two couples getting together for a dinner. And they shot the entire thing at one of the actors' houses in 5 days and shot it with whatever camera they had. And actually the opening 2 scenes of the movie, you can tell there's a tiny little fuzzy right in the middle of the lens, and then and they just didn't look at the playback and go, oops, got to do that over. They were just whatever, we got it. They'll edit it together later. And then hopefully either they figured it out or they just happened to wipe the lens. I don't know. But it's a lovely, interesting story with great characters. They used really talented improvisers. So they were just like, great, this is the scene where blank happens. And I love that. Like, I also would like to write a detailed script and really plan the shoot and go crazy with like, oh, the shot will be like this and this and this. But I also love the idea of just being like, great, we're going to do like a Waiting for Guffman, and we can build out the characters via Zoom. And then I'll create the outline and I'll know. So then as soon as it's safe, once it's like, great, who's vaccinated? Great, we can start getting your shots now,
Mm-hmm.
But just that idea of like just trying to get by on like the absolute lowest amount, because it doesn't take a lot of money to make a quality story. It just, you can work around it. You can have a fuzzy in the middle of the lens if there are other redeeming qualities that make it interesting.
Oh yeah.
And then, hopefully that helps you get in with those production companies that are like, yeah, sure, we can give you $7 million to make this random. And you're like, oh my God, thank you. I can pay people. This is great.
Well, I will say, I think that what that proves is that, the key is story. Like, can you tell a good story? Because, I mean, I've been on movies, small, like micro budget movies where I was amazed because they actually got like $10,000, $20,000 to make this thing. But the script was bad. And it's just like, I just look at stuff like that. Cause I was a PA on this one movie. And I think the only reason I came on is cause it was a friend of a friend who couldn't do it. And he was like, hey, will you be a PA on this movie? And I was like, okay, cool. But they had like a nice camera. It was like I forget, it was a Sony FS, one of those big FS cameras. And like, they had all the equipment and the logistics and everything, but this script was just, I would like watch these scenes. I'm like, what? Like,
why?
This is, yeah.
Yeah.
And it's so, I think, I think it's really, it's more about like, even if you're just using your iPhone, like, can you tell a good story? And if you can, then the rest of it kind of, I mean, sure, it matters, but like, it doesn't matter as much as if, the script is bad. So,
yeah. That's, I've been doing the Sundance Writers Cafe. Hassani, what no budget films did you work on? How did you help on a film? Tell me more. Sundance has like a writer's cafe Monday, Wednesday, Friday. That's just like show up and write for an hour. They give you a prompt. If you want to use it, great. If you don't worry about it. And then they split you up into, if you want to stay, they put you in breakout rooms. So like 6 to 8 writers together. And you just talk about like, did you use the prompt? What did you think of it? What are you working on? Or just like, I don't know, none of us used it. What do we want to talk about? So it's been really great. But one of the resources one day was about different types of comedies. And it was an article that, listed off, there's this type and this type and this type. And then it said mockumentary. And, and I was like, that's what I want to do one of those, what's his name? Waiting for Guffman.
Christopher Guest.
Yes. Thank you. I always forget his name, but I can list like a whole bunch of his movies. I've always wanted to do something like that because I know so many ridiculously talented improvisers that if you were just like, great, we've already worked on your character. You know exactly who you are and what you want. Like, how you behave in this world. So the two of you are in the scene. You have 2.5 minutes to make this happen. And they would make it so fantastic and so funny in one take. If you then also gave them information ahead of time to be like, great, come up with the funniest lines that you can, and we'll shoot a couple takes of it. How did I get onto this subject?
I mean, to me, it sounds like you just need to make this movie.
I know. Well, but I never knew what the movie was. Like, I was like, but what is that world? What's the story? What is the point of the movie? And I couldn't, I was like, I don't know what it is. But then it was one paragraph about what is a mockumentary. And it was literally like, it's just a deeper dive into a world that people might not be as familiar with. And I was like, like a 9-pin bowling alley. And so then I was like, oh, snap. I got to write a movie about a 9, and like, this will probably be totally not at all like my pin setter movie, but I feel like the booger pickers will be in this movie. But, but just that idea that it's like, oh, what if it's this massive, like it's a competition between all the 9-pin bowlers and we're watching their tournament play out over 2 weeks or something.
There you go.
I was like, that could be really fun. Just like that small town element and like how people can just be like die hard about their specific thing. Mm-hmm. So now I'm excited. Now I was like, oh, the missing piece is here. Now I just have to like build out the story a little bit more and start finding actors. And I know so many people all over the place. I don't know improvisers in Austin, but I'm like, I feel like if I'm going to make a movie about 9-pin bowling in the country in Texas, because it's mostly just Texas, like there's not really 9-pin bowling left outside of Texas, that I was like, I got to use Texas people. Like I have to. So I have a couple of people I need to reach out to be like, hey, connect me with just brilliantly funny improvisers who you think would be interested in helping to create this film with me, and then go from there.
Oh man. Well, we should talk after this live stream because I can introduce you to some improvers. I mean,
I will take it.
I feel like Austin actually has like this like plethora of improvisers.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that's part of why I wanted to be here. Like, I mean, granted, like my family is really close, which is nice. What's happening? Oh, yeah, this fun bit. Oh, so here's where the reveal comes.
Yeah.
Of what their connection is. So I came to Austin partly because like I knew that there was a good comedy scene here. I knew there were a ton of improvisers, and I knew that like there was at least some film going on here. Like when I was living in Texas, when my sister was sick, I got an agent based in Houston, and they just kept sending me auditions in Austin. I was like, oh, so I guess Austin is kind of where all of those things are happening. But yeah, so it's like, this feels like a place where I've heard a lot of people complain about Austin film scene in the sense that it's not necessarily like a stepping stone to go straight to being able to get like career type jobs in Hollywood. But that's not necessarily what I'm looking for. It does feel like it's a place where you can be like, hey, I don't have a big budget, but I promise that I will respect your time. I will be organized. I will treat you with dignity. I will feed you. And I will make a project that you will have some ownership of, that it's like, great, if I can sell that movie now and make a bunch of money off of it, you will see part of that. It's not, trying to make it more of like a community endeavor. So, and that feels like a thing that I could do in Austin in a way that I don't know that I could in New York or LA anyway, where it's like, you really got to be able to, people are there trying to make their full living off of it with no expectation of like working for free. So it's like, oh, yikes. Whereas here, it's like, yeah, I'll be like Hassani, and I'll be your boom operator in exchange for having someone. What? Hassani has an IMDb page. I don't even have an IMDb. I gotta write something and get it produced more properly. I mean, I probably could put some of my YouTube stuff on IMDb, but it's okay.
Yeah, I feel like Austin has like, that's one of the things I love about Austin is you can meet people that are of like mind and make projects together and collaborate.
Yeah.
That's a big reveal.
Big reveal. The finger cut off thing.
Yeah.
But it's like, now we see the interconnectedness. I still sort of didn't believe. I had a hard time believing that the good guy would just forget. Like I wanted the good guy and the weird guy to not shoot each other. Like it felt like they had established just enough of a relationship and sort of mutual, like irritated respect. Like they'd found sort of a happy ground, there was like, even though he escaped and he ran off, it seemed like, they wouldn't try to kill each other, that it was like, that was in the past, but I guess he is still a thief and he did cut people's fingers off and do bad things in his previous life, but I don't know.
Yeah, this is a very much a homage to spaghetti westerns here.
A three-way shootout. Is there a three-way shootout? I tried to watch The Good, the Bad, the Ugly this week, and this week just kicked my butt and it did not happen.
Yeah, that's kind of the climax of that movie is there's a three-way shootout.
Okay.
But
who is the ugly in that movie? What is his story?
The character's name is Tuco. I can't remember. It's like Eli Wallach is the actor, who is like this great character actor. But yeah, his story is that he's a bandit, just kind of like in this movie with the weird. Eli Wallach's character was a bandit who did bad things in the past and still does pretty much. But he has this like you find out at one point in the story that he has a brother who's a Catholic priest. So there's like some interesting aspects to his background.
Yeah.
But yeah, they have this 3-way standoff at the very end, and it's different, but you know, the kind of the spirit of it is the same.
Yeah.
And then of course, yeah, the close-ups on everyone's eyes.
Yeah. Yeah, see, like I feel like it's like there's a little more movement to it. There's a little more, you know, as opposed to like the more old-timey westerns where it just felt like it was like, did you forget to move the camera? What's happening? Like, are we still doing this? What's happening? Alternate version. Oh, here we go. I do also appreciate how long this shoot 'em up series lasts. That they just keep shooting each other and shooting each other and shooting each other. I'm trying to find the here we go. I found it. I'm trying to find the description of the alternate ending. So the Korean theatrical cut is 7 minutes longer, and it ends more upbeat than the international version, including several more minutes of footage. In the alternative ending, so in the Korean ending, the weird gets up. He reveals the thick metal sheet that he hid under his quilted jacket, and he limps over to demolish the body of Chang-yi, the bad. While doing so, he discovers diamonds in his pocket, giggles with delight before realizing he's surrounded by the Japanese army. Inadvertently lighting a stick of dynamite, Taegu, which is that the weird?
He's the good, I think.
He's the good.
No, wait. I think he is the weird. Yeah,
Taegu.
He's the weird. Yeah.
Okay, Taegu, wait, where did I go? Scares off the Japanese and dives for cover after realizing it was lit. Over the credits, Taegu sets off to continue hunting for the treasure with his bounty multiplied 7-fold, while the good, Do-won, vindictively pursues him. The ending of the international version reflects the end that Kim Jee-woon originally wanted. So the Korean one, the weird and the good both live, and the good keeps chasing after the weird to try to pursue him.
Huh.
Oh, Hassani thought the good wasn't going to get hit at all. Well,
yeah.
The good in this movie reminds me a lot of Steven Yeun. Yeun, am I saying it right? Yeun? Yun. Okay, thank you. I was like, I don't think I'm saying it right. Like, this doesn't sound right in my brain. Steven Yeun. But then when I look at pictures of them online side by side, they don't look anything alike.
Yeah.
But I feel like the bit of facial hair in this movie, and then having seen him in Minari recently, like those two characters look a lot more similar. But then like seeing them at like award shows where they're clean shaven, I'm like, they look nothing alike. It's amazing how much facial hair can change the face.
I feel like Kong Ho's facial hair here, like he to me kind of looks different because in other movies he doesn't have any facial hair, and it just looks a little different. But very like kind of bleak ending, but I don't know, it fits. I think it fits with the movie.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think I would have enjoyed the Korean ending also, but this felt right. You know, it felt like I appreciated that it felt like we were equally invested in all three of them, and I think that's kind of hard to like set up. And I don't think I watched this part. Okay, that one's dead. What's happening? Yeah, I didn't watch this last night.
Oh.
I think I jumped off because I was like, I gotta go do tech. And I was like, I'm done. I'm peacing out.
Oh.
Da, da, da. Oh, they increased the reward. Okay. So this one is saying that is that the good or is that the weird?
That's a weird.
Oh, okay.
Um,
I was like hidden away there inside the scarf. Oh, and then it goes to black and white. That's fun. Huh. So then is he the lone survivor? Is that what this ending means?
Well, I think the weird and the good survived. But the weird is still wanted. And like the reward is much higher now.
Yeah. Ooh. It was too close to the edge for me. I'm like, just go back a little bit, please. Oh. Yay!
Woo!
Well, thank you for introducing me to this movie. It was super fun. And I did it's always not like I love going into movies with no specific expectations, with no idea really what's going to happen. Like if somebody that I know that I trust their taste says like, just watch this movie. I'm like, great. I'm just going to watch the movie and just see what happens. Yeah. That's awesome.
I'm glad you trusted my taste. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. I'm willing to take a chance on anybody's taste once. And then if it's just a train wreck, then the next time I might do a little Wikipedia. What's the storyline here? Any last things you want to like plug or promote?
I guess just keep an eye out in comic book stores for the West Moon Chronicle, and when it comes out, buy the crap out of that comic. So
the West what?
The West Moon Chronicle.
West Moon Chronicle. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Like that?
That's it.
Sweet. Okay, cool.
Hopefully it'll be out by the end of the year for just in time for Christmas, and then people can buy it as gifts and
nice.
Give it away.
How does that work? How do you do they find artists for you to collaborate with? Do you tell them like what kind of visual elements and then they find someone that fits that, or how does that work?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, just like that. They had me actually like go on Google and do image searches for things like the sword that the main character uses and like pictures of the location. It takes place in East Texas with all the pine forests out there. And nice. So yeah, and then like I'm a martial artist, and so I was actually just like in the backyard just with my friend shooting moves that some of the characters would be doing in the fight scenes and then sending that over to them. And then they pick an artist. They look at they read the script and get a sense of how the story, like what the tone of the story is, and reading the descriptions of the places and people, and they just pick an artist.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I'm excited.
Look into that sounds great. Yay! Well, this was super fun. Thank you so much for joining me. And
thanks for having me. This was great.
We didn't even get into Dungeons and Dragons at all, but I might. I'll watch some videos online. See if it feels like it's my cup of tea, and then maybe I'll come and crash your Thursday night session sometime. Or no, not Thursday nights. When is it?
Well, it varies. Usually it's Friday nights, but then this week, because of various reasons, we played on Thursday. But yeah.
Okay. Cool. Sweet.
Oh wait, Wednesday. We played on Wednesday. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Yesterday. I was like, today is Thursday. I'm also playing Dungeons and Dragons right now, but you can't tell. That would be amazing. Okay, wait, question. Have you seen the movie The Room? Did we talk about this?
Oh, I think we did talk about this. And no, I haven't seen The Room, so I know it's terrible, but I haven't actually seen it.
So I think my game plan with this series, I'm going to do like 10 episodes, do like 10 back-to-back episodes, pull the audio, figure out how to tell Frank to roll a D20 for him. I don't know what that means, but roll a D20 for Hassani.
I don't have my dice. They're somewhere else right now.
So I'll do 5 episodes, and then I'm going to invite those 5 people to watch The Room, and then I'll do 5 more episodes, and then do another, like, I haven't necessarily seen this. We're just reacting live to the movie on screen. But then I'm going to figure out how to like market this thing and how to try to connect it with people and, see what it turns into. Cause I'm loving this. It's been really fun to just like,
this is
watch movies with people,
Yeah. Well, and count me in for the room. I'll be there.
Yeah, sweet. Oh, whoops. I have a thing in my face. I forgot to move it. There we go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me. Frank's social media will be on the little post screen. So go follow him on Instagram and Twitter to keep up with life and, see what's next.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. I'll chat with you again soon.
Yeah, for sure. And thank you all for watching, being with us here.
Yes. Thank you, audience. Thank you, Hassani, Nikki, Bridget, DR was there for a second. Everybody else that was there. You're all wonderful and lovely. And I'll be back on Monday doing, I don't know, Tetris, something. Who knows? We'll see what happens. All right. Have a good night.
Y'all.
I totally forgot to say next week we're doing the Twilight Zone. We're going to do 2 episodes of the Twilight Zone. I'll post it on social media and then I'll put it in the Discord. Hit that Discord up, Hassani. But 2 specific episodes that have already been chosen, and a friend who's really big in sci-fi and horror who can like just talk circles around me with films that like he knows I'm probably barely going to talk the entire stream. It's going to be a nice break for all of you, but he's brilliant. So it's going to be really cool. All right. I'll see you soon. Bye.